As the founders of Surefoot, Bob and Russ Shea are obsessed with creating the perfect ski boot for you because they know that a properly fitted custom ski boot will make you a better skier, whatever level you're at. Surefoot, better fitting, better skiing.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Freeride Guide. It's Mark Warner here talking to my good friend and co-host, Mr. Derek Foose, who is, I guess you made it?
Oh, yeah, we made it. We are physically in Austria now at Fieberbrunn, so getting set to figure out what's going on with the next comp. Quite the mission to
Quite
get
the mission,
from
yeah. So
Mestia to Fieberbrunn.
The last time we talked, we were talking about the mission to get to Georgia, and then it's been a bit of a mission back. So those of you listening or watching this episode, Derek and I are going to talk a little bit now. It's currently about 1 o'clock in the morning here, and it's about 8 or so in the morning where you are. I think I'm in the stairwell just so I don't I don't wake people up. But you also had a mega mission on the way back, and the reason I'm in the stairwell and we're doing this kind of we're going to do a little abbreviated version with myself and Derek, but we also have a special guest on the show today. We weren't sure. Derek and I weren't sure if you were going to make it. I was going to say in time, but make it. So I actually got FWT alum and legend Drew Tabke to do the regular recap with me. So that's going to come up just after this little segment with Derek and myself. So yeah, man, you made it. You're in Fieberbrunn right now. I'm gonna say, was that one of the most disappointing competitions I think we've ever had in the FWT?
Yeah, I don't know if disappointing. It was weird. It was definitely weird. It has to be one of the highest crash to stomp rates like ever.
I think it's hovering about 50%, if not a little higher.
Yeah. So many crashes. The snow was powder, but it was dense and super deep and a little unpredictable of where it would be deep. So yeah, so many punch fronts, so many pairs of skis just parked exactly where they landed while the rider just went flipping down the face. Yeah, it was a weird one. It felt
Ben Richards' ski exploded.
Yeah. Ross's ski took off from him and went off on its own adventure. If you haven't watched his GoPro footage, the FWT posted it. It is really funny. He's yelling at his ski while he's trying to catch it, like, get back here.
The live commentary is amazing.
Yeah. Oh man, it was so funny. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't that funny for him because he was taking a no score. But yeah, it was a weird comp for sure. I mean, the good runs were really good, but so much crashing.
So much crashing, and in a lot of the same spots too. I noticed.
Yeah.
You'll hear us talk about it later in the event, but we discussed specifically. It was great to hear Drew's point of view as a rider who was on the tour for so long, and I asked him hey, when you're a rider, say Victor, for instance, we talked about this, he was later to drop in the men's category, and he had probably one of the most conservative runs I've ever seen Victor take. And I wonder if that was just a strategy option, right? And to be honest with you, I don't know if I wish is the right term, but I'm surprised more athletes didn't take that kind of I guess strategy. In particular, I would say like Astrid in particular, that would be, I don't know, she probably just wants to go for it and do her run. But, knowing that her and Justine were tied, Justine launched that backflip to the next county. And then Astrid comes in. I was like, oh, maybe put a run down. You've seen all these people in 2.5 categories ahead of you. Half of them are eating it or getting no scores. Maybe put a run down. But those are just some of the things that we were talking about.
Yeah, it's not in their DNA. It's just not. It's they're looking to move the needle, to raise the bar, to do something super sick. So yeah, I get it, and I understand it on both sides. Some people did strategic runs out there. Wei Tian, Abel, there were some, Victor. And it was the day for it. They get a result, put it in the score line, make the cut. But anyway, yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing what you and Drew talked about. But it's definitely we've definitely seen some shakeups in the rankings.
Absolutely. Before we get going, speaking of strategy, one excellent strategy for any skier out there would be to go to Surefoot and get yourself custom fitted Surefoot ski boots, fitting you for custom orthotics, custom heated liners. Quite possibly the best strategy you could ever have as a skier, because there's nothing worse than boots that don't fit, and there's nothing better than boots that are comfortable. And Surefoot will take care of that for you, just as they take care of us here at the Freeride Guide, which you can find on YouTube. If you're listening to this, you can watch us. We're both wearing some cool Freeride Guide toques, which will be available soon. As well, if you're listening on podcast, go and hit that 5-star review. Go give us a follow. It would really help us out. And tell your friends. If they like Freeride, tell your friends, because we'd love to hear them talk to us about it.
We want to hear from you guys.
Yeah, on the Backslap. The Backslap is the forum for you to put in your 2 cents, to give us a slap on the back, tell us we're doing a good job. Or if we backslapped and we totally blew it, you can let us know too. Backslap at freerideguidepodcast.com. All right. So, Derek, speaking about the backslap here, I watched on YouTube, as I usually do. One of the reasons I ended up connecting with Drew is because he watches it as well at 3 a.m. Raina Barkrid was watching. Slush, like the fun competition crew website, organization Slush, they were on there, as well as about 5,000 other people. And we did get a couple emails. I'll get to the one that's going to be more of a conversation in a moment. But one was from Andrew Smith, and it was a shout out to this gem during Jenna Keller's run. You're guaranteed a rodeo ride to Tomahawk Town. Getting right into a Derekism, which we actually got I wrote it down, but we got an email about it. So thanks, Andrew Smith, for sending that in. One of the better ones we'd heard for a while. There's another great one. When Chloe Hayer was going, you were talking about her strength, and she's quite tall. And I think you said something along the lines of a long leg is a strong leg. So that was a great one. That was a good one as well.
Yeah, I got to give a shout out to the ski racing world for that one. That came from Sarah Jane McNichol. That it's true. It's true. If you can keep it long, stay standing over it, you're gonna hold strength in position, and that's what you need in skiing. But yeah, I mean, it's got a nice ring to it too, I think.
All right. And then like I said, I was on the YouTube chat, and there was a few points that people were really I guess kind of hit the nail on the head of what I was thinking. Mike Rideout, halfway through, he's like, this venue is putting up a fight, which it really did, which we alluded to. Just one wolf. This face doesn't seem to allow for aggression. And I thought that was a really good point. And that was during Ski Women. So you look at Astrid, you look at Justine, like going for it, and it just wouldn't allow for it. It just wouldn't allow for it.
Yeah. I think the big sends in Ski Women all went down. That could have been a very different comp if Chloe had stomped that huge air, if Justine and Astrid had stomped those big flips. Some of the panels really change direction or change angle. Justine overshot her transition by a mile. Like, she kind of needed to land on the wall of the couloir, and she landed on the floor of it. And Astrid's math just didn't work. It was way too big. I think also way bigger than she expected to go. It was. Sorry to interrupt you. Didn't Virgil Didier? Didn't he like that massive straight air launch? Wasn't that the same spot that Justine backflipped? It was one further over. It was out of the couloir. Yeah, exactly. That was wild. But yeah, it was tricky to figure out angles because that venue is so full of nooks and crannies and all these parallel couloirs that sometimes you're jumping off of the wall of, or sometimes you're jumping into. So figuring out angles was really, I mean, honestly, for all three of those women, like Chloe's angle was just a bit off, and it made that huge air quite flat. And Justine and Astrid just went too big. But yeah, I think just one wolf is on it. He's right.
Yeah. It's interesting you brought up that, because I did notice it. I hadn't really thought about it exactly how you mentioned it, but that of face, there's a lot to choose from. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of cool little spots and little, like you said, nooks and crannies and shoots that makes it a really interesting face. It's also fascinating to me that last year's event on that face was one of the best we've ever seen. Whereas this one, it was the polar opposite. And it's just fascinating to me. Why? Was it just straight conditions? Was it because the riders had been there for a week and a half and had been doing, getting a little stir crazy, drinking grain alcohol, as I think Drew mentions later in the episode? Do you have an idea of why?
I think it was the conditions. There was a lot of snow on the face. It had been minus 25 the whole time. So it was, and then we got a big cross-loading wind that was pushing kind of from bottom right to top left. So it was compressed and condensed a little bit, not enough to form a crust, but enough to make it kind of dense. And when it's that dense, it wasn't wet, like it was really cold, but it was dense. And you go so far into it. And I mean, you guys know when the snow is really cold, it doesn't slide as well. And the riders were experimenting with like super cold snow wax to try to give themselves, the least friction they could. But when you find yourself like impacting into the snow that doesn't slide well, and you're going up to mid thigh in it, it just stops your feet. And so many of those where riders were going in way deeper, I think, than they expected to. And it's a funny problem to have, like, oh, we have too much powder. Like, okay.
What's interesting because it's interesting because there's like two events ago in Val Thorens was the first real good POW comp we've had maybe since the last time we were in Georgia. And like specifically for ski men, there were 7 no scores. Once again, this competition, another POW day, 7 no scores. Sounds like these guys all need to maybe start skiing a bit more POW.
Well, I'm sure they'd like to. Yeah, I'm sure they'd like to. And yeah, you did see it a little bit. I mean, the guys from the coast, Wei Tian and Marcus and Tom, like comfortable with heavy, dense snow, skied fine, no problem. Maybe people who don't ski as much dense, heavy snow had a harder time. But also, I think it was just inconsistent. You didn't exactly know what it was going to be until you landed in it. Because like the one that took everybody out, that central feature, that was crazy deep. Like when you actually saw people wallowing around trying to collect their equipment, and then when they had their skis off, they're going in almost up to their armpits. It's hard to anticipate that when you're in the air, when you've only done a visual inspection, right? How far into that snow are you actually going to plug, and what's it going to do to your momentum? And we found out. We found out what it did.
Yeah, like Maxime Chablot, like unfortunate, like what a just I'm sure he's ready to just write this year off. Like he tries to throw a double backflip and his skis literally just, as you said, plug, just stop into the side of the hill, and it's like, dude, like what does he got to do? What do you got to do?
I know. Yeah. He's having a tough time, and it's not for lack of trying. Like he's been doing awesome stuff, and it's just not working out, and so yeah, I think he's pretty down. And I don't know if Chablot listens to this, but if you are, keep your head up, because you're really good at this. You got a world title, but man, yeah, it's hard to see that somebody having such a struggle. And I think also the proof is in the pudding that this sport is hard. There's so many variables, there's so many factors that you can have a world champion just struggling like that. It just goes to show you that this is not easy, and it's really not easy to do well at.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, it's Freeride. You don't know you never know what to expect. So Before I get onto like the I think what's going to be the meat of our conversation here, is there anything else that kind of stuck out in your mind that that you feel like you want to chat about?
I mean, it was, yeah, I think it was just a weird comp, and there was, the momentum was hard. We saw a lot of crashes. We saw Simon Peredon get taken out by his own avalanche. There was definitely like it was action, but not a lot of like the good action. Just a lot of
Yeah.
tough and weird stuff going on. But I would, I guess, like to give credit to the riders in all four categories that figured it out and made it work, because the ones that didn't really shone a spotlight on how hard it was to ski and ride well in that snow. The ones who did probably deserve a little credit for it, because it wasn't easy to do, and they did. And it's one of the beauties of the Freeride World Tour is it's different in Golden than it is in Georgia, and super different than it was in Spain. And the ones who can figure it out and then execute on the day, those are the ones that shine. So the diversity of the skill set required, and the mental fortitude to be able to do it right, in a bunch of different comps and super different snow conditions and very different terrain, with all the other stuff that's going on, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned exactly what I wanted to chat with you about. We will talk about this with Drew moving forward, but the 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 avalanches, the slides, and I use the word avalanches specifically because that's what they were. They were big enough to be considered an avalanche versus just a slab or a slough. So, question, for a backslap email from Stephen Benzin. Hey, can you guys talk a bit about Simon's mini Avi / slough on the recap? Absolutely. And I want to add to that a little bit. And this is a question for you specifically in the booth. From at Fresh Avocado wrote this in the YouTube comments during the comp. Why is it the commentators never call avalanches avalanches, but trivialize them? I'm just reading this as it is, as slough or slabs. Is it due to legal or liability reasons?
Okay, so in the Val Thorens comp, we got roasted for that, for underplaying Carl's one, and I'll look back on Simon's one, and I probably said the word avalanche 5 times. Slab is a form of avalanche. Slough is a different thing, and what you'll see, like if you go back for our guest here, our viewer, our backslap writer, if you go back and listen after Simon's one, what you'll hear is we can't see from our commentary booth, we can't see it release Simon's. We see a small bit of movement in the upper right part of the screen, but the camera's following Simon. It's not looking above him to where this slab avalanche has released. So first of all, there's no liability. We can say whatever we want. But we're also only saying what we can see, and we're saying it in the moment. And our responsibility ultimately is for what's happening with the skier. As he comes down through that choke, we can see the building pile of snow, the avalanche that runs through the choke. And we're like, oh, that slid somewhere above him, but we can't see it, right? And from our position, we can't see up on the mountain to see where it released from or what's coming, because we're in a tent watching the screen. So we only see what the screen sees. Then I think I'm like, oh, he's relatively clear of it. Just stay right. And as I said that, he just arcs a left turn straight into the path of it and gets blown out.
Yeah.
Then it pulls
right
back.
Did you talk to him?
Yeah, he thought, he didn't see it cut out either. He thought it was slough just coming from above him. Now, obviously, there's some mountain management stuff that Simon's going to need to work on to be situationally aware of what's going on around you. And there's a reason they wear transceivers and airbags and have shovels and probes in their packs and all that. They are still skiing in the backcountry on big mountains. But effectively what he said is he didn't know how big it was. So he turned directly into the path of it. It blew his feet out from under him. If you go onto Simon's Instagram, you can see the drone shot of it and actually see when he goes in and does his 360, it releases above him as he effectively ski cuts that side facing slope, and it releases above him, but he moves away from it quickly and he's going faster than the snow is sliding, right? So that's why he didn't see it, and that's why we didn't see how significant it was until it came through that pinch, and then he skied into it. So yeah, there's no mandate for us not to say avalanche. I said avalanche for sure, not instantly because I didn't know. So yeah, like for those that have these hilarious conspiracy theories that we're trying to underplay what's going on, we're not. We're just reacting to what we see, and you know, I'll go back to Carl's one as well. Like we saw the crack, and then Carl goes off the cliff, and we don't see it anymore. Right. So people are like, oh, they don't want to say whatever. Like, no, we're trying to react to what we see as best as we can. And Carl in the Val Thorens instance was well clear of it. And I'm watching Carl on the screen. I'm not looking up at the face and seeing the bigger picture. We don't have that context. And then Simon's one, yeah, like it shut down the comp for a while they made sure that he was okay. And yeah, I mean, it was a mistake for sure, the way because he could have easily just stayed on the skier's right side and not been in that, but he turned directly into the path of it. So yeah, to answer that one, we are certainly not under any instruction not to say avalanche when we call what we see. But that one, we couldn't physically see what had happened until it was through that pinch, and had no idea how big it was until the debris pile settled, and we're like, oh, that was big.
That was significant. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
It was definitely significant. So thanks to Steve Benzin for writing into the Backslap email, backslap@freerideguidepodcast.com. If you want to send us an email, send it to us. We may read it on the show here. Question for you. So that wasn't the first pocket to rip out. I believe Anna Martinez, she did as well. She was kind of cruising along that little ridge. I think it ripped out, and I don't know if she saw that or not, but gauging her past runs and seeing this run, I think that may have spooked her a little bit. That's just from what I observed. I don't know if that's the fact or not. Chloe Hayer had a little slab cut out. So like it had happened several times up until that point. Now, I don't know if you've spoken to anybody on the tour or not. Once it happens, sure. Twice it happens, sure. 3 times. I think Tom had one happen as well. As that goes, it seemed like they were getting bigger and bigger. When do you just call it? You know what I mean? Like obviously Simon's, it was big enough to bury a person if he had got caught a little differently. Like he was stuck in it. He was stuck in it a little bit. They got him up quick, but he was on top. But I guess you kind of understand my point here is from a safety point of view from the organizers. Is that not enough to shut her down?
So take this for what it's worth, because I'm not part of the safety crew, right? I'm sitting at the bottom commentating. So I have contact with, but I'll tell you my thoughts at least. They had extensively bombed that face, like a lot, and done multiple ski cuts. So I again, this is just what I think. I don't know this to be true. And even after Simon's one, like there was definitely, we were wondering if we were going to keep going or if it was going to stop. But I guess they felt that it was okay to keep going. Most of the guts, it was those side hanging panels, and the other ones that people cut out were all below them as they skied across, effectively ski cutting. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the limit is on that, but I think their expectation, what the one that Simon's one was probably the biggest piece of unaffected snow on that entire face that he then released by skiing underneath it. I think they do put a little bit of the onus on the riders that this is backcountry skiing. These aren't North American freeride comps where it's inside a ski resort and it is 100% safe, similar to when people are out filming in the backcountry. You need to ski in a way, and if we use Tom or Chloe as an example, or even Anna, in a way where when those pockets cut out or those avalanches cut out, it went under them. It went down from where they were, where Simon cut in underneath that hanging face and released the bond that was holding the snow on that face from below it. So decision making in the mountains is part of this sport. Where you ski, how you put your skis on the snow, where you make your turns, all of that stuff, even what you ski under or in front of. If every single micro pocket and macro pocket has been ski cut, controlled, and released, well, you don't have a competition face anymore, because you're just going to have a pile of debris at the bottom. So I think there's a balance in there somewhere, of making it as safe as possible. And I think they attempt to walk that tightrope every time we get a venue that has new snow on it. And I think for the most part, it's done very well. And, there is a massive safety team. And as I said, the riders are all rolling with airbags and transceivers. Not that should be like, okay, it's fine if we're in avalanches because we have equipment. Like, the step one is still not to get in an avalanche. But, I don't know. I'm it's a kind of a rambling answer, but I guess at that point, the decision was, this is still safe enough, but it is a consequential environment. And that's a part of it. So they do put some onus on the riders to make good decisions in their movements on the mountain to avoid it as best they can. The others, the three that you mentioned, all did. Simon didn't. He could have, but he didn't. So yeah, like I guess it's after all the bombing, all the ski cutting, they decided, even with the evidence that you just cited, that they still felt that it was okay to move on. And we did. And other than that one, which was scary, but also ultimately avoidable, it ended up being safe. Yeah. Anyway.
Right on. Well, and you clarified it, but I also want to reiterate that you have zero input into any decisions that are made. You're just giving kind of an educated guess, an opinion on what
100%
right now. So like, I want to make sure that, people aren't saying, well, Derek said this or whatever.
Yeah. No,
he just calls, he literally just calls them as he sees them, and how he sees them is how he thinks of them. So, so take that with a grain of salt. I know everybody that's listening to this may already understand that. They're like, yeah, okay, we get it. But I want to make sure that we're not getting you in any trouble here. These are just kind of your thoughts and opinions based on our conversation. Before we get to my conversation and the full recap with Drew, let's go through the current rankings.
Surprise to no one, Victor Delarue leading the tour with an almost 11,000 point lead. He's holding multiple wins and a third in his score line. He's the man. He's the king of this. And it was the first time the first time this year at least, we've seen him in a podium spot other than the top step. But doing enough to cement his position there on top in the golden bib, and he's looking strong coming into the last two events for sure.
Yeah, he's got to make some mistakes in the next two. I think if he's not going to hold on to that, I think it's 9. Sorry to call you out in your math. It's just under 9, I believe, 9,000, but still.
Oh, true. Yeah, 26,400 to 17,900. Yeah.
So John Penfield in second place. He could easily come up with a couple wins in the next two events. He's won Verbier.
Yep.
Has he won Fieberbrunn as well?
I think so, and he's really good in Fieberbrunn. So we definitely can't count him out. And we're just doing one run this year in Fieberbrunn. And if we look back at last year, after run 1 in the 2-run format, he was leading. So, if that's what he does again, then that would be another win. Jonathan Penfield's just so consistent. And then Enzo with, he's got a win, a fourth, and then 2 crashes. So he's right in the mix. And as we kind of move down, rookie Remy Benamo, man, this guy is like making a splash this year. I'm stoked on him. The Swiss rider. Liam Rivera and Cody Bramwell both jumped from well below the cut to above the cut with podium finishes. I mean, Cody taking the win that everybody's been waiting for. That was probably the most popular result of the Georgia Pro, was Cody winning. Everybody was so stoked for him. He's such a good rider. He's so stylish. He's so strong, and he's just been not quite putting the puzzle together. And this time he just locked in and did such a great run. One of very few runs that didn't have mistakes in them.
I think he was the only one in Snowboard Men that didn't.
Yeah, that's wild.
That didn't have some sort of a bobble, or like a sit down, or a, you know, like I think he is the only one that didn't have a mistake, which is shocking. But you know, he was due. He was due.
Yeah, and that's funny that he's had these mistakes and crashes in the other comps when everybody else has been lighting it up, and then the one where nobody could figure it out, that's the one that he steps in and absolutely blazes it. So yeah, so stoked for Cody, and so he's above the cut now. We see Michael Mon, Holden Samuels, Cammy Armand, and then the two Region 2 rookies, Tilden and Conrad. They're down below the cut, but Michael has 13,615 points. Cody has 13,690 points. Timmy Schroeder has 13,895 points up in sixth, and 13,895 points. Oh, sorry, not sixth. We're tied for fifth with Timmy and Liam. Yeah. So effectively from eighth through fifth, we have a 4-way tie. So we go to Fieberbrunn. Well, we have gone to Fieberbrunn. And it is all to play for that cut. Whatever order those 5 guys end up in the event, that's the order that they're going to end up in the overall. And a few of them are going to find themselves on the downhill side of that, which is
it's pretty wild, man. It's tight and close, and I love that. You know, when they first initially brought in that 2-run format to Fieberbrunn, I thought that was really, really cool. In retrospect, I think this is better. Having a later cut, having the full, I guess the full group of riders for all categories going that full 5. Like this year, being able to have 6 events and pushing the cut to the end of the 5th being Fieberbrunn, I think that's the better way, honestly.
100% agree. 100% agree. I think it's way better. It's a much more integral series. Consistency matters, and everybody gets 5 events. If you make the tour, like back in those days, you make the Freeride World Tour and you only get 3 chances. Like brutal, so hard. So this is better in every way. Minus it was cool to see them do 2 runs. But I agree with you completely that it's better this way to have 5 before the cut.
Yeah, and before we move on, shout out Enzo Nilo, who was on the tour. He was one of those guys in the 3-run format who ended up getting dropped below the cut, wins the Challengers, comes back sitting in 3rd overall. So good for him.
Yeah,
good for him.
Resilience.
Yes. Snowboard Women. This is a pretty tight field as well.
Yeah, kinda. But Noemi Aki is really, she's having her way with it a bit at the top, at least 28,000 points. Michaela Davis-Meehan in second with 22,95. That's a pretty solid lead. And Noemi with 2 wins and a second in her first season on the Freeride World Tour. Like, she is a gangster, man. She's riding so well. No pressure, just handling it. She's kind of a bit of a student under the mentorism of Marion Erti, and you can see it in her riding. You can see she's fast and aggressive. She never misses a feature. If she could hit it, she'll hit it. That 360 in her run in the Georgia Pro was sick. Like, she's really bringing it. So full credit to Noemi, because she is. She's not riding like a new to the tour rider at all. She's definitely veteran moves. She doesn't fall much. She makes good decisions, but still, gets right up at the top of her level. And it's working out for her for sure, because she's leading by a decent chunk. We do still have another couple events to go, and I know there's more points on the table for finals in Verbier. So it's by no means a done deal, but if she cements another couple of those high high finishes, she's going to be looking at a world title in her first year, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty darn cool. As you said, Michaela Davis Meehan, I think finally has figured it out. She's kind of like living up to her potential. I think, right where, same thing that we were talking about, like it happens. Like Maxime Chablot is deep into a slump right now. Cody was going through it. Michaela had like a couple years where it was like, got dropped off the tour. Like, what's happening? Right. Well, here she is. He's finally kind of put it together. Anna Martinez, another rookie who's had some great events. This was probably her shakiest one of the season, and I think that she'll get over that really quickly, just because like with Noemi, they're friends. They both kind of work under Marion, or I guess have been influenced by Marion, as we had mentioned before. So I see her coming through. Audrey Hepburn with the 1664 is just above the cut line, with Nuria just below it with a 16075. So not much separating the two of them. And Nuria's run was actually really, really hot at this event.
Yeah. She's been on the podium. It's actually quite wild. She's been on the podium twice this year and is still below the cut. With I guess a slightly lower result than Audrey has, but it's super close. Those two, effectively, given how many points are available for the next comp, they're effectively tied. One on the good side, one on the bad. I have a theory on this, that it's past time to take more than 4 snowboard women through. When you've got this tie and you've got people with multiple podiums below the cut, it's let's get 5 through, let's get 6 through, let's get 10 in the field. Women's snowboard is on the ascendancy right now, and a 4-person field in finals is, when you have someone like Nuria with multiple podiums, is too small. That's again my opinion, not the opinions of anybody else outside of this, but looking at these standings. I kind of think that's a very clear sign that this field is ready and deserving to grow.
Right on. Move into, let's go ski women here. In top spot, we already kind of mentioned this. Going into this event, Justine and Astrid were tied, and they both crashed, but based on their placements for the comps that they haven't thrown away. Justine now has moved into first place with 23,120. Astrid not far behind with 1967, and then Molly Armanino sitting solid in third place with 18,395.
Totally. She is within striking distance of the other two, and so is Zuza with that win. She's only not that far behind
220 points behind
Molly. So it's all to play for still for the women. And as we've seen in Georgia, Justine and Astrid have no chill. They are going for mind-blowing runs. So we'll see what happens in these next two events. I'd say both Molly and Zuza are pretty safe on the cut. So if they're able to finish above either Justine or Astrid in the next event or two, it's kind of wide open. I mean, Justine, like mathematically right now, clearly out to a pretty solid lead, but it's all very much still there. And if they can, when those girls do those huge backflips and stomp, like it does well for sure. But we've seen in a couple events, like they are taking risks, which is so exciting to watch. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see that battle develop through the next couple of events between those 4 women, because it's not. I think it's not as far apart as it looks right now in the numbers.
I'd even add Jenna Keller into that, because she's not far behind.
She's not that far behind. No. I mean, consider you get 10,000 points for a win, and Jenna's like in the neighborhood of 5,000, 5,500 behind Justine. Your fast math is a lot better than mine, but 17,340 to 23,120. It's all still in play. And then, down at the cut again, like Taylor Dobbins jumped way up. She was down. Now she's not that far behind Ari. and could definitely make a splash. And even Chloe, Ellie down in the 9,000 point zone, like with a win. Or even a podium, they could step way up. We get into a place now where the ifs and ands and maybes are so prevalent. If somebody below the cut finishes really high and people who are near it have crashes and get lower results, like it can still shift a lot with this next event before the cut. So yeah, exciting developments here in ski women as always.
Yeah, absolutely. And then ski men. I'll let you take this one.
Well, Mark, just really lighting it up, winning back-to-back events in the 25 tour and back-to-back Georgia victories. And that was it was a pretty commanding one. It was a huge run. And yeah, he's sitting on top right now. He was saying, he was kind of joking, I think, on Instagram with Hitzig, that he had to wait till Max wasn't here to get the golden bib. So he's just taking it all in and giving himself, he's a humble kid. He's given himself or giving Max the benefit of the doubt that if he was here, it would be a big battle at the top between those two guys. But yeah, Marcus is holding it down. Martin Bender, not that far behind with another really strong result in Georgia. So, those two guys, first and second, both on the podium again in Georgia, just like last year. And then as we move down, Valley's in third. Virgil Didier, one of not that many rookies. I think actually only two that are on the uphill side of the cut. Him and Timo are the. Oh, Toby. Yeah, of course. Toby's up there in sixth. He had a great run too. Toby was so sick. So I was talking in the broadcast about Marcus being sick, and the day before the comp, Marcus was like green.
Oh, like ill.
Yeah. Actually physically sick. Yeah, totally.
I was like, he was.
And Toby was having the day that Marcus had the day before, like the absolute low point in the illness on comp day. Just like so low, so no energy. Like,
when we got another great Derekism as well when Marcus went. What did you say? He is flat. I think he said something. This kid is flat as a pancake right now.
Yeah. Well, you could
2 weeks in a row.
I know. Just hammered by illness. And you could see it in the body language when he came into the finish. Like last year, he was so, and even in other comps, like so G'd up and full of adrenaline and excitement. And he was just like hanging on the fronts of his boots, head down, like just a battery flat. So credit to those guys. And then, and
if I can interrupt you, before Marcus has still lived up to the all or nothing label that he's developing. He's either on the podium or he's not, or he's crashed.
Yeah. There seems to be no in between whatsoever for him. We saw, I thought, interestingly, particularly Abel Moga and Wei Tian Ho take quite strategic approaches to this event to lock in a keeper result, but not risk too much to a crash, because both of them were in positions where they have some crashes in their score line. And so a mid, upper, I mean, let's be honest too, like a sixth for Wei Tian, and even the ninth for Abel, like those were strategic runs to make sure they have something decent in the scoreline that's not a crash. And I think it's, excuse me, I think it's interesting and kind of cool that there is a little bit of that in play. The all or nothing approach that we see doesn't work for everybody. And when you get yourself into a position where you're down kind of near the cut line, Abel's put himself up in 7th, Wei Tian's in 10th. The cut is below 13th. So yeah, interesting to see some strategy come into the Freeride World Tour game. Carl jumping up over the cut up to the good side with that really strong result. He ended up in 5th with opening the field too, which he was so hyped on.
We talk about this with Drew. I think if he hadn't gone first, I think he would have been scored a little higher personally. But that's we dive deep into that. You and I can talk about that after.
Yeah.
But
Maybe. I mean, Toby's run was also pretty. Like that's who was just above him, and his run was also pretty spectacular. Like if you look past the actual score number and just look at the ranking, I think fifth was probably appropriate in that field for Carl. But I hear what you're saying. Yeah, if he had run later, the number may have been higher, but I think the ranking probably would have been the same.
Right. So we get down to like where the cut is. You get like the Carls, the Christophers. Christopher's had an un Christopher type season this year.
Yeah.
Oscar, I think not quite living up to what I expected of Oscar as well, but he's got it in there. He's kind of going through one of those, I think, slumps as well.
Yeah, a couple crashes. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's of course. And then on the lower side of the cut, actually, if you look at it, between let's just say 9th to, let's say, like 17th, it's like 4,000 points between 10 riders. What's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 riders, and there's 4,000 points separating them between 9th and like Tom Pfeiffer in like 17th place. Like it's so close.
Yeah, for sure. There are many opportunities for shakeups to go on in that field. We'll see what happens with this next comp in Fieberbrunn, because that one is so wide open. It definitely closes. The door closes a little bit somewhere around, I guess, Ross, where it's a little further away up in 8th. But even there, like it can change so much. So we'll see how some of those some of those guys that are on the downhill side with a bit of pressure applied, if they're gonna rise to it in this next comp. Because I can tell you almost for sure that whatever happens here in Fieberbrunn, it's not going to be an issue of the snow being too deep. It's going to be a bit of a different scene here, probably a little bit firmer. There is some new snow on the Wildtiloder, but it's a low tide season in this part of Austria at least, and it's very warm. So, we may be looking at a slush comp, but we're definitely looking at some things that are usually in play on that face are just not going to be at all. We've only arrived last night, so haven't laid eyes, but I've seen some photos and stuff, and it's definitely looking a little slim, but also looking like we are going to be able to run. So yeah, we'll see who goes strategy, who goes all in, who goes completely balls to the wall, gunning for a win, and see what happens. Cause yeah, it's pretty wide open, both at the top and in that midfield around the cut line. So exciting times coming here for this next event.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'm really fired up for it. Like you said, you just arrived in Fieberbrunn. Any kind of preliminary information on when the comp might run?
I don't even know. I mean, we're like half a day behind the organizers. They left in the afternoon directly after the Georgia comp to get here and get skis and boards on snow and get eyes on the face. We had breakfast with Lolo, and he said that he thinks it's going to work. Now they just need to figure out timing, looking at weather. It's warm, really, really warm. So I think
really
my instinct is earlier rather than later, before more of it melts away, because the forecast has a lot of sun in it. So that's my guess.
The weather window is the 8th to the 13th, March 8th to the 13th. Recording this, it's the early morning of, well, I guess it's the 4th for both of us now.
Yep.
So a few days away. So we'll have to kind of see how things go and stay tuned to the FWT channels to kind of get the update and get the news on it. But I think we're in for some fun here. Mm-hmm. I know there's some riders that really need to make moves, some that need to maybe just hold on to where they're at, just because this is the cut. This is what we play for. 5 events, and then boom, we're right into the Verbi Extreme before you know it.
Yeah, it's crunch time. So a lot of plans just ticking away in these riders' heads of how they're going to play it, and of course they haven't even seen the mountain yet. They're all going to be arriving here in the next day or so. I think they've moved arrival day up by a day, just so everybody can actually see what's going on and we can figure it out. But as we said, like the guys are on the mountain now, figuring out where to put the starts, what's going to be open, when we're going to run, all of that stuff. Like all those things are still question marks hanging in the air. So yeah, as you said, stay tuned to FWT socials to know what's going on, but it's coming up quick. And I, for one, am excited to see it.
And check in on the Freeride guide because we'll do our best to update you that. Also, there was a same day that they held the Georgia event. There was a Challenger was held. The most recent Challenger. I'm just trying to pull it up. We don't have time for it right now, but we'll probably do another episode, or we'll update that during the Fieberbrunn competition.
Yeah,
but we'll just
they were in.
Sorry,
they were in Nanda, just in the Verbier Cat Valley, Four Valleys complex, and it seemed like it went pretty well. And they have 6 challengers in Region 1, so they're halfway through the season now, and starting to see a little bit of a crystallization in the rankings. But still very much all to play for. I think the next one is down there in Alagna in Italy. So
right on. Oh, and they announced right after our last episode where we said we're not sure where they were going to. The very next morning, they announced that Whitewater is going to be the first challenger for Region 2. So I've wrote some emails, and I'm going to try and get out there and either be on the mic or on the broadcast. So I'm going to try and get connected with that because that will be a lot of fun.
Yeah, stoked to see a Region 2 challenger event in Canada, up there in Nelson. On the Powder Highway, that face that they've got there is very cool. It's steep and scary and gnarly, and it's gonna be a sick comp.
Awesome. I'll do a quick recap of who's currently leading the challenger right now. We got Paul de Portales with 61.30. Victor Hale Woods. Actually, they're tied.
Also 61.30.
Yeah, tie for first in Ski Men. Rudy Collett is in third place. And, we don't really have enough time to go full on into this, but we just want to get you guys familiar with the names because there's a good chance that you may hear them a lot next season. Zoe Del Zoppo moved into first spot for Ski Women. Lou Barin and Eva Batola at 1, 2, and 3 for Ski Women. Snowboard Men, Sasha Belico, Gabin Bouzin, and Christophe Charlet, 1, 2, 3. So all French riders, 1, 2, 3. Snowboard Men. And then for Snowboard Women, Sarah Bacher, Selena Weber in second, and Michaela Holstein in third. And they're all quite close. Quite close. So,
it's tight. It's coming. Get into it. This is the Pro-Ams right now, and it's definitely good watching, and they're doing a great job, both Region 1 and Region 2, with having live broadcasts of the event. So it's definitely worth your time. If you're a Freeride fan, watch it all. It's like watching Junior A hockey, right? It's great hockey. This is great high level Freeride at the Challengers. So definitely worth putting your time in. And as you keep saying, get to know these names because they're coming.
Absolutely. All right, Derek. Well, thanks for glad we could connect. I'm glad you made it. And hopefully you'll get a day or two to kind of decompress and get
and get our luggage out of Georgia.
You haven't got your Jeez. All right. Well, we'll have to hear all the stories over a beer, man. Great to see you, Derek. Thanks everybody for tuning in. If you're listening on podcast, please follow along and give us a great review if that's something that you feel we are deserving of. You can check us out on YouTube as well. You can see us sitting here talking to each other. I'm in a stairwell. You're in a hotel in Austria. We make it work wherever we can. And go hit that follow button or subscribe button on YouTube as well. Backslap at Backslap at freerideguidepodcast.com. Send us your email, your thoughts, your questions. We will read those on the air. Stay tuned. This one with you took a little bit longer than I expected, so I think I'm going to cut this one and the full recap into 2. So go and check that out now with a great conversation with FWT legend Drew Tabke doing the full Georgia Pro recap with me. So thanks, everybody. I'm Mark signing off.
Yeah, thank you, Drew. Thank you, Mark. Look forward to chatting with you again.
All right, everybody, stay tuned, and we'll talk to you sooner than you think.
This has been a Redmark Media production.